even though we may be professionals in our field, we aren't offering therapeutic advice through this show. So if you need that, please reach out to us. We'd like to get you pointed in the right direction wherever you may live.
If you're a man that controls his own destiny, a man that is always in the pursuit of being better, you are in the right place. You are responsible. You are strong. You are a leader. You are a force for good. Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.
All right, so we're back with Mike Olsen of MikeOlsen.biz, and we've been going through his story. He's from eastern Utah, a town called Roosevelt, Utah. Oh, Brad's raising his hand. Go ahead. Go ahead, Brad. What do you have to say there, Brad?
I'm curious about, you're talking about these failed relationships, and I wonder, as we're talking about kids, Mike, what have you learned about being a parent from previous relationships that have failed? How has that helped you be a better parent?
Go back. One thing I want to touch on before you get to that. What was it like? My kids were really young when I got divorced. They didn't really understand what was going on, but your kids were older. What was that like? Going to your kids and saying, because it's not an experience, for a guy who's been divorced twice, it's not an experience I've ever had. What was that like going to your kids and telling them?
They all handle it differently. We kind of told them separately. My second one, the one that we've had lots of problems with, had a meltdown. From an emotional standpoint, he's much more emotional than the others. The others, I think, kind of pushed it off and didn't really process it at the time, which I wouldn't expect that. But my second one had a meltdown, both physically when we told him that, as well as it's still a big issue learning how to deal with that today, because I think he has a little bit more of me. Getting to Brad's question, the biggest thing that I learned in that ties both of those two things together is the thing that I have learned is control is not your friend. If you try to control the outcome of your environment, you're just misleading yourself, because that will tend to give you this concept that if I control it, I have all wisdom, I have knowledge, I'm the father, I'm the alpha, I know best, I got to protect. Until I got divorced, and I had for a short period of time until I was able to get them completely under my custody, I had to accept the fact that they are in a situation where they could actually die. And it freaked me out, but I had to also come to peace with the fact that death, believe it or not, is not the worst thing. Teaching them how to make their own choices, how to find truth for themselves, and learning to be accountable and capable as quickly as possible was going to be the most important thing. And I could not have learned that if I was not able to let go of the fact that I felt I had to gain control because things were spinning out of control. Control is not your friend. It's misleading you into being a bad person.
So control it. When you say control, you're trying to control the outcome, control their behaviors, making sure that
I want to make this safe. I know what safe is. I'm a good person. This is the misleading part that we have in our mind. I know what safe is. I know what right is, and I need to control that situation. I've turned that now into a scenario of let's make sure that you're entering into these accountability situations. Instead of control, let's learn what things I can be accountable for, and let's teach my kids, here are things that you're going to need to be accountable for, and here's how you need to learn to tell the difference between my boss really is a jerk, and that might be the case sometimes, which my youngest one has really struggled with. My boss is a jerk, may be the case, but you have to learn where's the accountability. You don't get to choose who your boss picks. You can influence that, but you can also do a lot of damage. And so I think learning to turn it into a case of, in this situation, what's my responsibility? What can I be accountable for? And everything outside of that, I have to let someone else be accountable for those other things.
Right. So, would you say that now, how old are your kids now?
My oldest is 24. Mm-hmm. My second son is 21.
Okay.
Then I have a son that is 18 going to school at Cedar City, another kid that's serving a church mission in Orlando. They're almost identical. They're both 18. And then I have a 13-year-old.
That's called Irish twins, right?
If they were related, but one's
related.
Yeah, one is my wife's son, so it's my stepson. Right. But I accept him, and he's a great young man, extremely different from the others, but that's worked to a positive, but it's also had difficulties. But yeah, just have the 13-year-old son at home.
So just you and Mrs. Olsen and the 13-year-old son.
Correct.
How do you get along with the 13? How does your 13-year-old son like the arrangement with you and your? How long have you been married? 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years, and my sons came to me full time probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, both times. My second divorce, they came to me briefly for my second marriage because there was a meltdown, and then when I was going through that divorce that I definitely didn't want, they had to kind of get into a safe place. They went back to their mother for a little while, and then when I was remarried, probably within basically a year after that. Within a year after my second divorce, then the pot melted again, and I received full custody from them, and so they've been with me full time. 8 years basically.
Your second divorce. What were your takeaways from the second? I mean, what did you learn there? What was the situation? I mean, you were married 3 years the second time.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much you want to get into this, but
whatever. That marriage was during a difficult economic time as well, and I wasn't making a lot of money, so that was very difficult for her. But at the same time, she had changed her mind. I told her, "Listen, I don't think are you sure you want to marry me?" My sister had set us up.
Did she have kids?
No, she did not have children.
Raising somebody else's kids, that's a big ask.
It really is. And I warned her against that. I'm like, I see a train wreck happening. Are you sure you want to do this? And, I think she kind of talked herself into it because she believed it was the right thing. And, we loved each other. But raising 4 sons that have already been through a trauma situation,
right,
you're just begging to get punched in the face.
Right.
And then she wanted to have children of her own. And we couldn't do that both materially or even physically currently. It would have cost some expensive medical bills. And I was quite frank from the beginning, said, I'm not going to be able to provide you children, even if you want to. I just can't, not with what I currently have. And she seemed to be okay with that, but that changed later. Right. And so
biology is what it is. I mean,
it is what it is.
It's the same biology that was keeping her from really embracing and loving your kids the way she wanted to.
Right.
The same biology that's telling her to.
And she wanted to have her own children. I think we've never really even spoken, since the divorce. It wasn't terrible. I didn't blame her. I'm like, I really don't blame you for, what you want to do.
Sounds to me like it was kind of like Thunt's thing. I think she just sent you a text one day and said, yeah, this ain't working. I'm moving to
It was quite a bit more involved in that, obviously. But, and I've since learned that she has had twin girls.
That's cool.
But I believe she's fallen off the face of the earth from a social media standpoint and family standpoint. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Mm-hmm. I run into her cousins every now and then, and they kind of just shake their head and they don't talk. But so I don't really know what happened. Mm-hmm. I just hope and wish that I believe it or not, I often pray and do our cultural things that we would do for my ex-wives, hoping that they can find peace and happiness. And I truly do mean that, because I hate to see people suffer when it's not needed.
Right.
One of the themes that have come up here quite a number of times is just the idea that things always work out. That's with some Derek's story and some different things we've talked about, that things just work out. And having been divorced, I know that that's one of the most difficult things to ever face. You're just thinking this is the ultimate destruction. This is the ultimate. How could you ever make it through something so terrible as a divorce? You've been through it a couple times, and here you are, still good looking, still successful, still handling your business, still raising your kids, still just carrying on with life. How in the world did you get to the point where you could ever say, I'll manage, I'll be okay, I can handle this?
That's a great question. It's one that, because in the deep recesses of your mind, when you're going through the pain, you do want it to end. I often describe those situations that you're going through. And when I went through that divorce the second time, I thought, are you kidding me? Once again, I'm dealing with something that I never wanted to deal with in the first place, still didn't want to deal with, but I didn't have a choice. The feeling is like taking a shovel, starting at the top of your rib cage, ripping it out. And that's basically what going through that emotional separation is like. And I was now dealing with that a second time. And even though I had to get to the point where I had to be comfortable that was someone else's choice, in order for me to be in a good place and not be bitter and not do some of these things that were self-destructive and that would just tear me up inside, it wasn't easy. In fact, my current wife knew a religious leader, knew both of us, and introduced Mrs. Olsen, current Mrs. Olsen, and I. And so it was definitely a difficult place to find. It wasn't easy to take a breath and know that you're feeling like you're at the bottom of the lake, racing to the top. Don't suck in the water yet and drown. You'll make it. And just every single breath hurts when you're going through those particular things. And that was one of the things that I think actually ended up being a blessing. I'm in the e-commerce industry, and I wasn't at that time. And I threw myself headlong into programming and understanding e-commerce platforms. And I knew that it was bicycles before. Now it was, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with myself and how I'm going to distract myself in a positive manner. And I learned the Google platforms extremely well. I learned the Amazon platforms extremely well. I learned the eBay platform extremely well, mostly because I needed a distraction. It ended up being what was a career move for me.
Nice.
How much time was between your second and your current marriage? How long were you?
Less than a year.
Oh, wow. You move fast.
So here, and I'll be honest, I wasn't afraid to be alone. Mm-hmm. I was afraid of what I would become if I was alone. I did want to be married. Mm-hmm. I wanted to stay married. And I probably, like everyone else, you doubt that you're cut out to be married. Nobody can handle being married. What in the crap am I doing wrong?
When you get through your second divorce, you kind of think, man, I must not be very good at that. I mean, it's like literally, I remember I would go out, and meet people, because when I got married this time, I'd been single for 3 years for a while, and I didn't really date that much. I really had no interest in it. I kind of felt like, all right, well, I had a good run. I tried, But I never felt like I would get married again or have any more kids. I kind of felt like, I'm just not very good at it. So
I never got jaded.
I was jaded.
I knew, and that's what a lot of people do. They'll get jaded, but I could not take myself to that dark place. I'd seen that. I'd had experiences, fairly close to me where I watched people become men haters or woman haters. And that was something that I could see. What really, when I talk about this control, I knew that control of others and other situations was not going to work. Only thing I could do was myself, and the only way I could get the power back was to accept responsibility completely.
Right.
No matter what happened, because in the end, if you're married, you chose that. There's a lot of people who have that same belief. I really can't have any power unless I own all of my situation and that I chose that.
That's a tough lesson, or that's a tough moment to realize when this person, when you're in a situation, when you're up to your neck in the end of a marriage and your family's gone, kablooey. Now, my situation's different from yours in that it looks like, you have the custody of your kids. You've been able to raise them. I have relationships with my sons is completely estranged, and that's a different topic for a different day. But it's really hard, or it was for me, and I imagine anybody else in that situation would feel the same way. It's really hard to own that and realize that I'm in this situation that I'm in because of choices that I made. Right. And it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or a bad father or a bad man or something like that. That just means I made some decisions that have consequences that suck. That's all that means. It's not a reflection on me as a person or being bad. shit happens.
But keep in mind, it's not terminal. It's not the end.
Exactly. But when you're in the middle of it,
when you're in the middle of it,
like you feel like when you're going through that, and there are men listening to this right now that are in this, and I can tell you, I know exactly how you feel. And I remember having nights, and I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I remember falling asleep at night sometimes thinking, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm fine.
I don't care.
Yeah. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't suicidal, but It was just like, I'm done with this. You know, I remember feeling like that.
Yep.
And so, right. But at the same time, now 10, 15 years later, I look at it, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change 1 minute of it.
Right.
Hey, you're probably like me. Nothing rattles me anymore.
Right.
Nothing. Like I look at, and now I've thrown that out into the universe. The universe is like, yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
You say nothing.
Like I don't want to tempt fate, but I look at this and I think, all right, I can handle this. I can handle this. You know, It might suck. It might hurt. It might leave a mark. But at the end of the day, I feel like because of the road that I've traveled, nothing rattles me. Like,
Earlier, Mike, you were talking about, old people, why why they're so calm. And I think it's because they've been through so many things. They've learned that what you're freaking out about right now may not be that big a deal. And I think under stress in general, that's
hey, Brad.
Yes.
You talk closer into the mic.
Closer to the mic. I'm in. When we're dealing with stress in general, we're really looking at it and we're asking two questions immediately. One is this thing good or bad? Whatever's happening, is this good or bad? And number two, can I handle it? And what I'm hearing you both say is, having gone through some difficult crap, you just have learned that I can deal with pretty much anything now because I've had my heart broken. I've hurt myself in these ways, and I can handle this. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Right. Your expectations of what you previously expected has been thrown out the window, and it teaches you a lot to really adjust and shorten your expectations of other people, and realize that. And I don't mean by any stretch of the imagination to say don't trust people, don't rely on people. Just expect that they have choices, and they very well may make choices that are going to disrupt your life, their life, and could cause a lot of damage. And you have to learn to get to a place where you can respect those choices and not react to those choices. And yeah, I think old people have seen it. They've been there. I'm getting to be the old person.
Yeah, he just had a birthday this week, 51.
51.
He looks younger than I do.
I went to Top Golf.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah.
I was asleep for 24 hours. I had to take ibuprofen, a painkiller, to sit down. Because, yes, I proved it. I'm there. But usually...
You went to Top Golf and you had to take ibuprofen for that?
Yes. After, I was in such pain. My wife she was just mocking me.
Man, golf is more physical than it looks. I just did my first golf lesson on Saturday, and my lower back is like tight. I've never used those muscles.
You've been
before.
standing up, loosening and twisting the entire time. It was the same for me. I was good at one time, but those muscles, they talk about muscle memory, that my muscles right now have amnesia and Alzheimer's and everything else all wrapped up into one. They forgot completely what a golf
guys,
swing
I've had open heart surgery, and I was walking around the hospital less than 24 hours later. You guys are a bunch of pansies.
With this golf soreness. Come on.
Yeah,
yeah, I was golfing, and my back hurts just a little bit right now.
Well, I get sore for doing nothing. I'll wake up some days and I'm like, why are my calves sore? I've not been doing any.
You're getting older when you wake up in the morning and the first thing you say to your wife is, hey, are you okay? How'd you sleep last night? That's when you're getting old.
So with as far as your business is concerned, I mean, what these lessons you and I have been talking about, how nothing really rattles. I feel like, look, I'm not trying to invite tragedy into my life. I certainly, if something were to happen to my kids or something like that, I'm absolutely certain that it would be difficult. But at the end of the day, one of the overall, if there is an overall theme to Alpha Quorum, is that it always works out if you will allow it to work out. In fact, you don't even have to allow it. It's just going to work out. 99.9% of everything that's happening around, I have absolutely no control over. I have 100% control over what's going on inside of me.
And how you react.
And how I react. And sometimes I am awesome at that, and other times...
As my mother would make me say, say, you inhale vigorously. Don't say sucks, Mike. You can't say sucks. You inhale vigorously.
Inhale vigorously.
So and sometimes I'm really good at managing my expectations and managing my reactions, and then sometimes it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. So how is that translated as far as your business? Because from what I understand, you got a pretty nice little. In fact, why don't you go ahead and plug your business right now? What do you? But how is that translated into having a successful online business, or what lessons have you taken to kind of apply into that?
Well, one of the things that I do primarily during the day, my main job, I manage a distribution center, the West Coast Distribution Center for another company. I'm an employee of that, and we sell about $70 million, $65 to $70 million a year worth of tools that we private label, which means in the Amazon world, FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, that's the secret, and brand control is the entire thing. And so we will figure out how to procure or to buy or to get a factory in another part of the world, make a product for us and ship it here, and then we rearrange it, put it on the right pallets, and send it to where Amazon tells us to send it so that they can do that. But we also, from a distribution standpoint, sell directly to those Amazon consumers out of a warehouse in South Dakota, about 10,000 shipments a week of auto body tools.
Wow.
And so we send those shipments out. And then I also, in the evenings, I have a contract with another Chinese manufacturer where we make girly foo-foo stuff, basically. Not the kind that Thunt knows about. These are more things that your wife puts on a table, cutesy, pictures, lamps, and furniture and things like that. And I handle the Amazon and eBay accounts for them in the evening. About 6 o'clock in the evening is when it's the next day, 9 a.m. for China. And so I'm communicating back and forth and keeping those online distribution things going and making that happen.
Oh, that's cool. And does that you run that through MikeOlsen.biz, or that's something?
Those I'm privately contracted. I will probably be getting into more and more of my own thing as time goes on. This 10 years that I've kind of gone through with my divorce and second divorce has really put I think I used to look at it as, man, it put me behind in the business world. But the thing that I learned from business is that you have to learn to accept the choices of others, even if your boss or your spouse is choosing something that you know is not right, you know is dumb. If they're the boss, they're the one writing the check.
Right.
If it's your spouse, they have the freedom to make their own choices as well. You get to deal with how you choose to handle that. If you choose to become a more valuable asset in your company by dealing with things and being patient and just following through. One of the things that got me to where I am, this is a very valuable lesson to those of you who are out there looking to make a career change late in life. You can do it at 50. Or if you're starting out, you can do it. Go do something for free. If you really become a professional at it, if you're making a switch, some people think, well, I'm not going to do this until I get paid. Or I'm not going to initially start until I know how much money I can make. That you don't have the leverage at that point. You don't have the ability to say, I'm going to command this. Eventually, it will come back to you. If you are good enough, whether it's getting paid in a podcast, if you want to be an influencer, like everybody wants to know how much I'm going to get per post, you better go be doing a bunch of it for free that proves you can put your money where your mouth is. Otherwise, you don't have anything. If you can learn to have that humility, you'll create your own value, and you'll also cause a whole lot less damage in the meantime. You'll become a person that people want to work with.
What was that book that about the 10,000 hours? What was that book? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Was that Tim Ferriss?
It was Malcolm Gladwell, and he talked about how it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. Have you ever read that book?
I've not, but I totally believe in that concept. So many people get into it, and they're a legend in their own mind right away.
Right. Now, one of the examples he uses in the book, I remember, is the Beatles. You know, we all think about the Beatles. I don't know what you guys think about. I'm a big Beatles fan. I listen to them all the time. They've got that station on satellite radio, Station 18. I listen to that all the time. But one of the examples that Gladwell uses in the book is how when the Beatles first got together, I don't know if this is when Pete Best was the drummer or if it was Ringo. How bad has it got to be Pete Best? To be honest with you, think about that. Like he quit the band and Ringo took over. But
ouch.
They went to, I think it was Germany, and they performed like 7 days a week, 4, 5, 10 hours a day, whatever it was, in like German honky tonks or whatever it was at the time to get their 10,000 hours. And it was when they came back from Germany back to England. That's when they had the hits. That's when they had that string of success. It was that 10,000 hours. But when they were in Germany, they weren't making anything.
No, so. you got to put in your time, and you have to eat a lot of crap for free.
I've eaten a lot of free crap,
and you've got to learn to like the taste of it.
Okay, well,
otherwise you're in for a long. Even you can get to what you want quicker if you can acquire a taste for eating crap.
Well, some crap does taste less bad than others. Is that like, this crap is not as bad as the other crap that I've dealt with. So, is there anything? I think how long we've been on, Brad? What are we at time wise? We've been going on for a while. I've been yapping.
Hour and a half.
Flapping off.
Flapping off.
Hobo Moped's not here tonight, but we'll use flapping off for an hour and a half. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mike? I mean, I think people are going to like you. We're definitely going to have you back. I like your point of view. This is something I've been thinking about a lot in my own life, in that I try, and sometimes I'm better at than the other, but in my relationship with Mrs. Johnson, I try to emotionally detach myself from her conclusions.
What do you mean by that?
I sometimes, when you're in a relationship, when you're in a partnership, your spouse does things that we don't understand. Like, why are you doing it this way?
Yes.
Why does it have to be this way? Why can't we have it this way? Why is it like an all or nothing? And I have a bad habit of taking when Mrs. Johnson doesn't do things the way I would do them. Not that I think they should be done that way, because nothing that I do, I believe, is the way it should be done. I just kind of, that's the way I do it. But when she doesn't do it my way, I would take it personally. Like, why? Right. If you just do it my way, this will all work out. And what I'm learning is it's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just my way and her way, and just let her do it her way. You know what I'm saying? 99% of the time, it doesn't matter.
You know what I ask myself when I'm struggling with that? Is this going to matter in 100 years? Is this going to matter in 10 years? Is this going to matter in 5 years? Is this going to matter next week? And if the answer,
Son's bringing a lot of serious words into the conversation.
If the answer is no, why am I so concerned?
I have a one that has worked for me. What does it matter for me? It works negatively. I've had to go to that place that I referred to before of accountability. Is this choice my responsibility to make? Even if it's, and Mrs. Olsen currently, I warned her that this would come out. It was, remember I told you about Martha Stewart and everything needing to be perfect. Brad's seen my house. Brad's seen my wife. She's immaculate.
Oh, she's put together.
She's dressed to the nines constantly. My mother-in-law, 84, will kill somebody in her car someday, I'm sure, but she will still dress to the nines and will want to know why I hang my towel this way. Not because she's curious. That's what I think you're doing. You're not curious. You're saying my way is better. And when you say is this choice that is being discussed or thought about or argued about, whose responsibility is it to do? And if you allow that other person to have the responsibility when it is, and you properly express to that other person, I understand you might probably do it differently and the way you do it works, but this is I think being able to divide that up for me, it works, because if this is my responsibility, let me do my choices the way I want to do, my choices. If this is your responsibility, then I need to let you freely do that and just go, awesome, I like the way you hung that towel.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, most of the stuff I felt myself going down. We were driving home from California last night. It was a long day. I had to be cheer dad yesterday, and it was the longest. Nice. So, you drive 200 miles, you get a hotel. I was in this, it was at the convention center at UC Irvine, like literally for 8 hours yesterday to watch my daughter perform for 2.5 minutes. And anyway, so we're driving home, and Mrs. Johnson and I start to get in an argument, and it's getting to the point where it's going to be a long drive home if I continue to go down. And it's just like a death spiral, And I just remember pulling it. I pulled over, I parked it, and I said, you know what? Can we go back like 5 minutes ago? I'm sorry. I'm tired. I've been stuck in this. I'm hungry. Let's just go get something to eat. And I don't even remember what even started it. I have no idea. But to her credit, she let it go, and that was it. And
that's my favorite thing. I love doing that. My wife's not such a big fan because usually we're too far into it. But I like to just say, can we reverse this? Can we just rewind 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever? I'll start again. I literally sometimes will walk in the door and say, I'm home, like trying to just redo and start over. And
no matter how phony it appears?
Yeah. I mean, to me,
works.
I think you can start it over, but she doesn't seem to like that too much. But I like the idea of it. Did it work?
Last night it worked, but I think it worked. I think everybody was just, everybody was done yesterday. It's just a long day. So, I mean, I didn't get home till, 3 o'clock this morning or something like that. So, all right, Mike. Okay. Well, hey, we really appreciate you coming in. You want to come back?
I would love to come back. I really appreciate I think that this format has all of the necessary component. Your chemistry that you deal. I'm sorry that Mike wasn't here. I love his participation in it. But yeah, this is a great thing.
Listen, it's good that he's not here. You wouldn't have gotten a word in edgewise.
He's always flapping off too much.
If there's any way that I can bring value, that's fine.
No, for sure. And people can reach you how? How do they reach you?
You can find me on Instagram, Mike Olsen _me. I'm pretty easy to find, on the social media things on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll tag you on this. We'll tag you on this announcement too.
I'm not hard to find.
All right, Thought, you okay? You gonna be all right? You already swipe right and find somebody while we were doing this, or did you find a new? No. All right, hey, we appreciate your time. Again, go ahead and like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. But it's getting late. The cough is kicking in. Jeremy's over here. If you can hear it, he's the one snoring in the background. But this is Alpha Quorum, and we are done.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alpha Quorum podcast. While we talk about real life and real life issues, we're really just entertaining you and hoping you find some value out of what we're saying. And again, if you need someone to talk to, please look for a professional in your area or contact us so we can help you find one yourself.
Gentlemen, you are the Alpha, and this is the Alpha Quorum.